Hi, folks. Thank you for joining us for Friday morning, uh, the 27th of February. And whether you're watching this live as it happens, or on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, we thank you very much for joining us. And we are very glad to see you. I'm Rick Banyalis. I'm the communications and social media person for the group. And it's very nice to see you all. I wanted to share something with you. This is the ICUJP link tree. And I put the link in the chat for this. It has a lot of information about stuff that's going on. Um, there's links to publishers of books of authors that we have had on. Also to documentarian websites for folks that we've had on, and our YouTube channel, where eventually you'll be able to see this on that channel. Um, there is a threadless store where you can find some lovely merchandise like a t-shirt, a onesie for your subversive little toddler, um, things like that. You can also donate to ICJP, and please highlight that, hit it if you can, and whether it's a one-time donation or monthly, all of it makes a difference in what we can do in the real world. Because, now that we're trying to get into coming out of the COVID haze, we're trying to make sure that we have flyers, we're able to rent a space, we're able to get the equipment we need to do real-time service out in the public. In fact, also too for your entertainment, there's a Spotify playlist, jazz, R&B, and a bunch of music that you can listen to get inspired. Hopefully you can all take advantage of that and play it at your next party. So thank you all for being here. And I wanted to make sure, Carol Francis, I think we have a reflection from you. So if everybody else can go on mute, that would be great.
And a woman spoke, saying, "Tell us of pain." And he said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding." Now, probably many of you recognize this as being from The Prophet by Lebanese American Khalil Gibran. Probably the first challenge one makes to the Christian missionary is, if your God is so powerful and so good and so just, then why do innocent people suffer? The answer we're given is that God is so vast and that we are so small that we can't hope to understand his divine plan. Pain. I have recently been diagnosed with Parkinson, which, though I wouldn't wish it on anyone, is not as horrible as it seemed it would be. Not as horrible as I had anticipated. As a new friend I had recently met said when he told me he had it, "Thank God for meds." And yes, for even though my doctor has not finished adjusting the combination of my meds, I do spend most of my days, experiencing none of its symptoms. And if the meds fail to work someday, there's a certain surgical procedure they can do. But in between doses, like if my noontime dose comes too long after my morning one, then I feel it. Once there's a tremor in my hands and in my right leg, in my right calf, that reminds me of the tremor of a quaking aspen on a slight breeze. Then there's the tossing around of the whole body, like a willow in a storm. That second kind, that involuntary movements that characterize Parkinson's disease, isn't really painful. In fact, it's like having music dance me. It doesn't hurt unless there's a setting off of the pain that's already in me. And I've had back and neck aches periodically since my early 70s. One recent afternoon, I was typing a short message on a phone when it started to happen. Perched on my kitchen step stool, these involuntary movements came and set the pain off. I could occasionally talk my body into sitting still for brief periods of time, but the tremor in my hand made my whole process of typing an impossible ordeal to get through. So I went and sat in my sofa chair, putting on my not a chair, which is basically a back pad attached to two straps that go around the knees. Um, and I also have a wooden neck pillow, which helps to realign the spine. I'm so grateful for this thing. I know that probably around maybe about half of you have, and I'm thinking of all of you women who have given birth, have suffered what is sometimes called unbearable pain. We always seem to manage to bear it. But could we ever hope to understand a child in Gaza having a hand or foot amputated without anesthetics, or an elder with shrapnel in her body, if we had never suffered pain ourselves? Could we feel the pain of the wretched of the earth if we have no memory of such pain that is recalled at the description of their pain? The experience of pain then makes empathy, makes solidarity possible.
Thank you, Carol Francis.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Um, I'm glad that you were able to be so open about what you're going through. So thank you very much. So I am very glad that we are able to have this program this morning. Because I think in a way, aside from a few of us that live like Svancha does um, in Orange County and somewhere where being a blue dot in a red county is kind of hard to do. Those of us in Southern California and in other areas don't know what it is to be able to go out and do actions and put out flyers and do that kind of stuff when somebody got elected maybe with 60 or 70% of the vote in that county. It's intimidating. So and I think there's some lessons there too, because that we will all learn. Because if somebody can do that at a place like a red state like Wyoming is for the most part, then that should lift us all up to do the work that we need to do. And I'm very glad that Betsy and Amber can join us today. We are going to go to the person that brought them to our program this morning, Uncle Jon Krampner. John, if you can introduce everybody, and everybody else, if you can go on mute, that would be wonderful.
Great. Thank you, Rick. Um, it's no exaggeration to say that Wyoming is the Trumpiest state in the Union. In the 2024 presidential election, Donald Trump's margin over Kamala Harris was 72 to 26%, a margin of 46 points, the widest in any of the 50 states. Our speakers today, Wyoming natives Amber Bland and Betsy Erickson, are driving forces behind CUSP, the Casper Unity and Solidarity Project, an organization consisting primarily of progressive Wyoming women in their 30s and 40s. The acronym CUSP stems from the Audre Lorde quote, "I am on the cusp of change and the curve is shifting fast." CUSP engages in political activism, staging rallies and letters to the editor campaigns. It's also involved in mutual aid, organizing food drives, clothing drives, and toiletry drives for the unhoused. Amber Bland, the founder of CUSP, has spent half her life in Laramie and half in Casper. For those unfamiliar with Wyoming geography, Laramie is in the southeast corner of the state and is the home of the University of Wyoming. Casper is more centrally located. Amber grew up in a conservative Republican household, but her leftist ideals caused her to become the black sheep of her family and led her to found CUSP in 2025. She has an associate's degree in sociology from Laramie County Community College and a bachelor's degree in criminal science from the University of Wyoming. Betsy Erickson is a lifelong resident of Casper and a co-founder of CUSP. While a Wyoming native, she can trace her roots to a family of New York progressives. She has a bachelor's degree in English from the University of Wyoming and a master's degree in education from St. Catherine University. She has worked as a Montessori teacher and ran a Montessori school. I add with no small measure of avuncular pride that she is also my niece. Take it away, guys, in whichever order you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. Wyoming is the Trumpiest state in the union. This picture was taken at one of our first rallies, and Amber and I picked it because really, like, we as CUSP are trying to lead with love, really. Like, even the people we disagree with, we're trying to love them. See. We were introduced. You've met us. My Uncle Jon has been so great in helping me harness my ability to be an activist and has encouraged me to be brave, even when things sometimes don't feel super easy. But yeah, I mean, I guess my start in progressive activism was in 2022. I wrote a letter to the editor about why Democrats should switch their party affiliation to vote for Liz Cheney instead of Harriet Hageman. So here we are. Amber, was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so. My venture into activism really honestly just kind of sprang up last year with the start of Trump's second term. So I don't have a whole lot of background outside of that because it took me a little bit of a journey to get where I am politically as it is.
Well, some statistics, as we had been talking about. So Republicans typically perform 25% better in Wyoming than the national average. We've talked about the Donald Trump margins, and only 27% of people registered to vote did in the 2024 primary. In Wyoming, I mean, elections are won in the primary because often people don't contest the race. So often, if you sign up for the primary and you're the only one, you win. Ta-da! So it's bleak in that way. And Wyoming is the first state in the nation to have the Freedom Caucus controlling the state legislature. We have a majority in the House and a few in our state Senate. And it has been disgraceful, quite honestly, to watch them last year and this year. So far, they're not even done this year. So yeah, the CUSP. So yeah, Amber started it. She'll tell you all about it. But yeah, the quote, "I'm on the cusp of change and the curve is shifting fast." We as the group sat down and agreed that we were all moved by this quote, and then we were able to finagle the acronym CUSP from it.
So, as Betsy and Jon mentioned, I am technically the founder of CUSP, although really I have to give so much credit to the group as a whole because we have no formal structure. And so while this was me and my friend Bryn's brainchild, it really, like, founder is just like, we got the ball rolling, really is where I would like that emphasis to be. But all of our leadership is pretty much horizontal, and we all play different roles in keeping everything afloat. So, like I said just a few minutes ago, I really didn't start this journey until last year. At the end of Trump's first term, I was just completely and totally flabbergasted and appalled that that is what we as a nation had decided was acceptable. And I thought for sure that there is absolutely no way that that person could ever get elected again. And lo and behold, here we are. So that just, just everything that he was campaigning on and the platforms which he was really leveraging to grow his base were concerning for so many reasons. And so late January last year, a friend that I've known since, I think, second grade, we met and had coffee, and we just had to get out. Her husband is a little bit conservative, so we have to go have coffee so we can vent and scream all of the political woes that we have into the great abyss. And, we just really were like, we don't know what to do. And we had this moment of helplessness where how can we start making a difference in some way, somehow? And we really didn't even know what we were doing. We didn't really know what our goal was. We just knew that we had to try to do something. And so we put a call to action in a feminists group on Facebook. It was Feminists of Casper, Wyoming, I think is the name of the group, figuring that we would be more likely to find some like-minded people there, and just said, we don't really know what we want to do, but we want to do something. And if this is something that you would be interested in, please message me. And we got a pretty substantial amount of support almost immediately. The very first meeting we had, there was only 7 of us, one of which was Betsy's mom, Deb, and Deb's actually who got Betsy roped in shortly after, thankfully. But 7 people meeting in a coffee shop. And then that was February. And by April, we had over 20 of us. And now there's, I believe, between 50 and 60 members, kind of just depending on the day and who's active and who's busy and whatnot, because we all have lives that we lead independently, of course. So this is it's how we got here, and we really just have continued to build momentum along the way, and it's been a wild ride, very unpredictable.
Thank you. So once we, as the larger group, decided on a name and figuring out what our goals were, we wrote our mission statement, which again, when it's one of the, and I'm going to say this a million times during this presentation, but one of the cool things about this group is we generally, and in the best way, have a hard time saying no to each other. Like, you know, so it's always like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And then, you know, sometimes we bite off more than we can chew because of it. But here is our mission statement with all of the ideas from everybody about what we wanted and as concisely as possible. Nonpartisan organization dedicated to fostering a vibrant and inclusive community. Our mission is to empower the community through mutual aid, promoting diversity, equity, and solidarity in all of our endeavors, and celebrating difference and change, and then an invitation to join us. Yeah, so we share this and it's posted on our social media and pinned to the top so that everybody can see what we're talking about and what we mean. And we do live with that. Like, we behave in this manner at all our meetings and when we're in public. Like, this is what we live by.
Absolutely.
So what makes our group unique? We're mostly a group of women in our 30s and 40s. There are some people who are a little bit younger, and there's a group that I lovingly call the old biddies. There's probably about 10 of them, and they're great support, great assets in helping us decide how and what to do, as they've been activists in the past. As Amber said, almost all of us have children and all of us work full-time jobs on top of doing this volunteer work. And so it's just, we fill the gaps wherever we can, right? If one person's available to do the thing, we put it we have a whole Discord server, reach out to each other. Hey, we need a call to action on this thing. And on any given day, if you say, hey, I need help with this thing, or this person needs help with this thing, 5 to 10 people will respond, I'm available to help with that project. We do have 2 branches. We have our political branch and our mutual aid branch. And most of the people in the group had no interest in political activism or practice in political activism until last year, as we watched national and state leadership just break down all of the things that we really believed in. And so we're working to build what we can back. And we practice horizontal leadership towards the beginning of last year. It was suggested that we read the book Mutual Aid by, is it Dean Spade?
Yep.
And I don't think all of us read it, but if we didn't all read it, the people who read it were able to share quotes and, pieces with the group so that we have an idea. And I think that's where we got the idea for the horizontal leadership. So we have no board. We don't have anything. If there's any issue within the group, we talk it out to pieces. And sometimes that means that our meetings last hours. But we want everybody to feel valued in this space.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of our goal. And sometimes it does lead to some hiccups along the way because some people are very staunch and adamant. But by and large, we will not move forward with a project or an endeavor if we don't have almost unanimous support for it. And I think that is is something that is kind of unique to us as well.
Our political efforts. We have a weekly letter to the editor campaign. The way we've organized this is like we have an organized sign off, like basically is, the whistle to the world. And it's writing in solidarity for a better Wyoming future. That's the sign off. It's the whistle to the world, what we're doing. And the way it works is we just have, again, in our Discord server, we have a whole setup of, a list of topics that, if you want to look at the list, you sure can. If you have something that's weighing on your heart, write about that. We collectively edit. There's a whole editing team, and we edit the letters together to make sure that we are representing our group in a way that feels appropriate. Yeah. We've organized rallies, No Kings, Ice Out rallies, and more. One of the cool things that we do is that when we have a rally, we typically tie it to a mutual aid effort, which when we get into our awesome resume will show. And we've done voter drives. Because we're nonpartisan, we're able to, hey, we're nonpartisan, come join us for this, this thing, bring your photo ID. We will have notaries on site. And so that's been really cool. And we've been able to show up for other organizations with aligned values and core values as, for their rallies. We went to a rally for May Day last year, and we went in solidarity. And we've done a couple others where we show up, usually in our CUSP shirts, to show that, we are a separate organization, but that we are in support of whatever this organization is doing. So here's our semi-comprehensive CUSP rally resume. We did March 8th, 2025, International Women's Day. Amber, I'm so sorry, I forgot to add how many people were at that one. Do you remember?
I think it was about 75. I think it was 75.
Yeah, so the first rally was 75. And as you'll see, we've grown quite a bit. The next one, the Hands Off rally, was estimated to be 250 people. And then our No Kings last April was 600, which for Wyoming means we usually rally across the street from the hospital because, it's downtown Casper. And for reference, Casper is 56,000 people. It's not huge by any means. But 600 people took up a whole block and then part of the next block down. So 600 people with signs, and we did a food drive for Wyoming Food for Thought. And Wyoming Food for Thought is an organization that helps they pack food bags for kids who won't have food over the weekend, who are in, food hardships, and make it. So yeah, we collect for Food for Thought a lot to be able to provide for the children of our community. Kick Out the Clowns in June was also huge at 650 people. Community impact, we did a diaper drive, which actually was really fun with the Kick Out the Clowns. We got huge signs of our federal delegation and Donald Trump and put clown noses on their faces. They were fun signs. They were fun signs. The only thing that I want to note about that one, which we'll talk about in a little bit, is that was the first rally where we had a gun threat. In Wyoming, almost everybody carries a gun. And so that was the first rally where we had received online threats that somebody was going to use us as target practice or whatever. And then Good Trouble Lives On, 200 people. And then we supported a No Kings, and that No Kings also had probably 700 people. And then since the middle of this last January, or since the middle of January, we've been doing Ice Out rallies. And on any given Saturday, we have between 50 and 150 people.
All right. So the mutual aid piece is the really where it all started. So um, when we were very first meeting, the thing that we kept coming back to over and over again was food insecurity and what that was going to look like with all of the cuts that were being suggested and proposed. And we just knew that there was absolutely no way that we could sit back and not do anything about the possibility of our community not being fed, very specifically children, anybody, of course, but I mean, the children just are so innocent in all of it. So um, that really just kind of kicked off into everything. And so, like Betsy mentioned, at all of our rallies, or at least most of our rallies, we do try to tie in a mutual aid effort um, so that we can collect. But it's also kind of a way that whether people necessarily see it immediately or not, um, like we are doing these mutual aid efforts because of the political climate. And there's so many things that wouldn't have to be the way that they are if our political landscape looked differently. And that's kind of one of the things that we try to do is plant those seeds of how these policies and this administration and our elected officials are increasing the need for this social support. And we don't come right out and necessarily say that, but it's just kind of how we tie it all together. Um, and that's also part of the reason, as Betsy mentioned, that we have started with our voter registration. I don't remember the exact statistic on one of those first slides, but it was like 30% of eligible voters, less than 30% of eligible voters voted in our state in the last election. And that is such a low number. And so many people think that it can't make a difference. But, we have the Freedom Caucus in control of our state right now. And that's a very, very scary thing to be. We have a representative who legitimately said that she did not want to accept federal funds for school aged children to receive food supplements over the summer because she did not want them to become too comfortable depending on the government. So we don't care if you're hungry as long as you don't rely on that government too much. And oh goodness, that's a whole nother tangent. So I'm just gonna go back to mutual aid. Food drives have really kind of been our most pivotal contribution. We've had I think several in-person food drives in conjunction with the food drives that we have as part of rallies. And then we've also done some unique collection ideas, trying to get the community involved in a fun way with a Battle of the Bars collection effort, and a Battle of the Baristas is now currently going on. And that's just kind of a fun, friendly little competition amongst local businesses to see who can collect the most food items. We've done a back to school bash, which was a huge success. When Betsy was kindly saying that we don't really have the capacity to tell one another no, this is probably the best example of that, because we bit off way more than we could chew. We ended up pulling it off beautifully, but we collected clothes and shoes and backpacks and water bottles, some which were donated, some were just people dropping off leftovers from garage sales or cleaning out their closets to support the effort. But essentially, people were able to just come and do their back to school shopping in a way that felt fun. And they didn't have to spend a dime to do it. So we made it into a party. We had food trucks, we had live music all day, but people were able to just come in a judgment-free environment and take what they needed to make sure that they had everything in place to go back to school successfully. We are huge allies of the Casper Pride program. We were vendors at their Pride Fest and ended up raising over $700 for their efforts with things that we donated and sold. We volunteer weekly with Meals on Wheels and Food for Thought Project. We've collected and distributed banned books to all of our free little libraries, which one of the bills the Freedom Caucus is trying to push through right now would punish libraries and potentially schools for having sexually explicit books in the children's section, which, come on, there's not any there. The Freedom Caucus has just got to go. Kind Grounds, I think I saw someone ask that in the chat. Kind Grounds is a local organization that supports the unhoused in the community. So they offer meals there twice a day, several days a week. And it's just kind of a safe little stopping place for the unhoused people to go get some resources, get some food, get out of the cold, get out of the heat. It's just a really good little support group place for them. So we donate with them. We do care packages for people to be able to just kind of grab and go and have some hygiene necessities for their travels. We do coats, boots, things like that, anything to help them stay protected from the elements. That's what we actually did with our Juneteenth community building. Was we had everyone in our group and volunteers signed up to bring certain items, and we put together some really cohesive care packages for them. And it was great because there were so many of us doing it that nobody had to spend more than $20 or $30, and we were able to, contribute more than 200 care packages to the unhoused people in our area. And we just kind of are a go-to for any sort of mutual aid. So we have people who know us well enough that they can reach out if they need assistance with food or gas or pet care, or we've actually rallied together as a group to ensure that a new mother was able to stay in her apartment. She was facing eviction, and between all of us, we were able to gather enough money to make her rent payment and her utilities and keep her power on as well. So it's just really kind of a good example of how individual efforts can really just make a much larger impact when they're all combined together, I think is really what our mutual aid is all about. Excuse me. So this is kind of our little resume about what we've done for mutual aid stuff. And I think I hit most of it. One other notable thing that kind of is probably a little bit more likely to happen here than a lot of other places is in June of 2025, the mayor of one of our neighboring little towns called Evansville, so it's really part of Casper, they're connected, put pride flags up around City Hall. And one of the residents was so incredibly upset by this that he deemed it appropriate to draw swastikas all around the building in chalk. And somehow in his mind, that was a comparative example of free speech. Obviously not at all. But it kind of lends a little bit more background as to what we're dealing with in this part of the country as far as what people deem to be socially acceptable hate. And we all showed up, and we took our own chalk and made sure that we covered all of that up. And so
We
those
ordered pizza for the community as well. Like,
yeah,
we all chipped in like $15 or $20, and we were able to order pizza in bulk and invite the community. Right.
Yeah.
And brought all the chalk to cover up the swastikas.
Yeah. So we just, kind of like Betsy was saying earlier, love is stronger than hate. And that's really, that's really where we go with all of this. We showed up to show that the love in our community far outweighs the hate. And, there were people not even involved with CUSP who showed up on our call to action to take care of that, because those of us who were upset were very, very, very upset by it. Yeah. So what else? What did I miss? Oh, just recently for Valentine's Day, this was just kind of fun. We do try to do like some feel good stuff too, where it's not just solely practicality. But for Valentine's Day, we refilled all of the free little pantries around the county. There's 10 of them. We refilled all of them with food and hygiene products, but then we also put fun Valentine's Day treats in all of them as well. So candy and little cards and words of affirmation. Um, so we do some feel good stuff as well.
Amber.
Hmm?
Yeah. So as Amber was saying, like here's a picture of some of our chalk art from last June. Yeah, we did that. We've also partnered with Juntos to do legal observer training. I would say that maybe 12 of the people in our group have done the legal observer training. And when we have rallies, we're really great about being sure to show up to rallies as observers instead of as ralliers. Um, and Amber was saying, like, we were able to help take care of a new mother and help her avoid eviction. Just because, yeah, everything is just so wild here. And the system is really set up in such a way for the littler guys to lose. Um, so what are the issues with organizing in Wyoming? I chose this picture because a lot of us, especially when we have 600 people show up, we get a lot of flack from the community that, we're bussed in from Colorado or from California and we're bussed in. There's no way we're locals. So this guy in his Sasquatch suit is one of my favorites. So yeah, so we do face some issues organizing here. Like I said, we do get gun threats at rallies. Specifically, that one last June was hard. My daughter is 7 and she had been asking to go to a rally. That was the first rally that I was like, sure, it should be fine. And then we got the gun threat and I was like, actually, you can't go because I don't feel like it's safe for you. It's okay. We made it through. But yeah, so we get that. When we rally out on the sidewalk on the street, we get a lot of, it's usually men who think they're really cool with their truck that blows out the black smoke. They roll through and they will purposefully like blow the exhaust in our faces. And it's gross, honestly. One of the other problems is knowing that you're in direct opposition with your friends, neighbors, and family members. Um, like I said, Casper isn't a huge community, so it's likely that any person driving by knows you by 6 degrees of separation. And it's kind of hard to stand up when you know that, possibly somebody that you love and care about but don't know their political views is, the person driving down the street blowing black smoke in your face. Like it's hurtful and it's hard. And like that's again part of why we're trying to lead with love is like, you can have your wrong opinion about things. Um, we get called a lot of mean names, like a lot of mean names. Um, on social media, one of my favorites, this isn't a mean name, but one of my favorites is that a gentleman called us out on social media recently saying that we function like the mob and hide behind, I know, we function like the mob and hide behind food banks. Okay. We just hear unhinged things all the time. Another one of our struggles though is that we're not formally incorporated in any way. So like when we do money things together, we're either giving each other cash or sending it to each other via Venmo because we've been really wary of incorporating in any way as a nonprofit, as a member organization, as anything. Because our Secretary of State is so deeply in line with the current administration, like to the point that he handed over Wyoming is one of the states that handed over voter rolls first because Chuck Gray is like really wanting to kiss up to Donald Trump. And so we've been really wary of incorporating and being on the radar of the Secretary of State. So, like, we don't have a bank account. I think we have an envelope of cash somewhere.
Yeah.
And yep, Amber has an envelope of cash and we Venmo to each other. So if there's an incident, like if there's a situation where we need money or whatever, like my most recent is that I needed, like the group was like, hey, let's send, our national delegation postcards and tell them, to abolish ICE. And so I designed a postcard, printed it, and I was like, I don't like 250 feels like a lot. $250 feels like a lot of money. Can you guys help me out? And like, within a day, like they were able to Venmo me for, the part that I didn't cover. But yeah, like since the administration is targeting nonprofits and aid organizations, like we just haven't incorporated. Um, we have some plans in the works to figure it out because a bank account would be really handy. But if we need to keep functioning without it, I think that's the plan, is to just keep running under the radar that way. And honestly, like a lot of the people who engage with us in person are are honestly either kind or, at least cordial, right? Like most of the people are like, no, not for me, or like encouraging and like show up. We had in one of the ICE rallies, like a couple of people saw us rallying against ICE and ran over to Target, which is really close to where we were rallying, grabbed a poster board and some Sharpies, made a sign, and joined us up on the ramp. So, I mean, six of one, half dozen another. Like most people just drive by, but the people in person can be positive, and most of the hate and negativity is online.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to remember, especially because it does oftentimes feel like we're so alone and isolated here in this state, because of what you see online and what you see happening at the legislative level. But the people who drive by honking with wild support versus the people who are flipping us off and rolling coal and yelling horrible things, like it's probably like, I would say 65 to 70% positive, which then has to challenge the whole narrative of what are the actual demographics of our state and why are so many people so disinterested um, in actually trying to get this changed. Because if we're getting that much support on the street holding signs, how can we make that translate into something that is a tangible action or improvement in our overall state government? And so that's kind of one of the things that we're also targeting with the letters to the editors, with the voter registration drives, all of those things is, apathy is going to be the death of us. And so we have to make people care, even if it doesn't impact them directly. And that's, I guess it gives me a lot of hope. Most of the time that we have these in-person rallies, it gives me so much hope because we are largely getting more support. But what we have online would make it seem like every single person in the state hates us. And so it's just always a good reminder that online personas aren't always aligned with reality.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So how do we turn our horn honkers into sign holders? Well, first is at some of our bigger rallies, we do have signs and we have people holding the signs. Come join us. We have plenty of signs. We do have a resident sign maker in our group who just like enjoys making signs. Like that is the thing that brings her peace and makes her feel, her contribution. She does a lot more than that, but that's one of the things that gives her peace. And so we usually have at least one person with their come join us. We have sign. Like Amber was saying, persistence and presence, both physically and on social media. We do show up on social media supporting other organizations and sharing our wins. But for the most part, like we lay low and we just show up in person because, like Amber said, we know that in person is where the power is. We know that people are on our side in person. Um, we keep our mission statement at the forefront, like, and we really do practice what we preach. We include everyone as best as we can. Um, you know, sometimes that feels really weird. Sometimes when people are new to protesting or new to gathering, they can be a little uncomfortable. And we as a group, like, we know who all we've already met. And so sometimes we can be, I don't want to say that we're unwelcoming, but sometimes we'll just ask, like, hey, welcome to the rally. What group are you with? And, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm just here because I'm an independent citizen. That's great. Welcome. It's nice to meet you. Um, Being nonpartisan is another thing that we do. And like, it sounds like it would be really crazy here because honestly, like, so many people show up in their MAGA persona. But like, by being nonpartisan, we've actually been able to gain, like, there are people from like the Nechona County Democrats who are in our group and people from the Nechona County Republicans who are in our group who are like supporting the work that we're doing. Um, but because we're nonpartisan, we're making it like this isn't about, it's not really about politics. It's not really about these boundaries. It's really about how can we collectively care about people. Um, and yeah, like, we show up for the community in as many ways as we can. Like, people know that we do mutual aid, and it's not uncommon. I mean, it's not uncommon at all that we get messages on, especially on social media and some to our email, like, hey, like, my name is so and so and I need help with food for my family. I need, my kid needs a new backpack, my kid needs a new pair of shoes, I can't pay my doctor's bill. And from there, we as the CUSP sort of, I don't know that we have a ranking system, but we do sort of find a way to measure which things are the things that we're going to help with. And honestly, we try to help with everything, because we do see that the people in our community are really hurting. And some of these people are people who voted for these policies and they're being hurt by them. And so we just show up and help them anyway. What would you add to that, Amber?
I mean, really, that is the essence of it, right? Is showing up. And I think that it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier in terms of like using the mutual aid at the rallies to plant the seeds, because so many people truly don't understand that they voted for something that ultimately was going to hurt them or hurt their family or someone that they loved and cared about. And so it's really just kind of about helping people connect those dots, that this is about so much more than, someone promising to make America great again. This is something that has real life impacts on our day-to-day living in so many different aspects. And I think, unfortunately, it took someone like Donald Trump for people to honestly see, like, politics matter. Who we have in office matters. It's not just a formality. There's so much more influence, things that we take for granted that are actually not things that we can take for granted, because they're proving every day that the things that are supposed to be our rights are not. And really, I mean, I hate using this word because I feel like I use it all the time, but just trying to help fill the gaps with
Mm-hmm.
like the cognitive dissonance that is plaguing our whole nation, in so many different ways, but especially it's especially noticeable in places like Wyoming.
For sure. For sure. For sure. And then our last slide is pictures of our current posters for the things that we have going on right now. We'll have an International Women's Day march and rally, and we have our list of, what we're going to be collecting for that, and that we're going to have a voter registration. Um, and so then we also have a battle of the bars running, battle of the baristas, excuse me, running, where our coffee shops are collecting donations. And really, like, this is all, managed within the group, like almost all inside the Discord server. And it's all volunteer. So yeah, we're rolling right along.
Very cool. Thank you, guys. That was very informative and inspiring too. I mean, talk about being in the front lines. So we have a few people that are actually, Steve, you have your hand up. Everybody else that has a question, you can do it electronically. You can do it the old-fashioned analog version as well, and I'll try and find it.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Amber. I've got a page of notes and questions, but first, it's just inspiring. I mean, it's the power of the people on display, and not just in some abstract notion or some bumper sticker. You are doing this work, and when I saw your bios with the kids you're raising and the families you're taking care of, and apparently full-time jobs, but this is exactly what it takes in a fraught, dangerous moment as we are in. So, and I will ask a question and get back in line with given other questions and hands that are raised. Have you seen in either within your families, within friends, or wider circles in the last 12 months, any change in support for Donald Trump from people that made up that 72%, or moderates or independents? Do people whisper to you that they're with you, but they're not yet ready to come out? Your numbers are strong for a small community. So I first want to kind of measure the temperature, the political temperature, but really the personal movement. So let's start there. What are you seeing, both openly and overtly, but also close to home and among your friends and colleagues?
For me, unfortunately, family-wise, I actually haven't seen much change in support for him over the past 12 months, which is very disheartening the more and more that comes out about everything, essentially. But I do see, like, on a wider basis outside of my immediate family, that there are more people who I would consider to be moderate, and like true conservatives, not mega conservatives, who are on our side than I would have originally expected there to be. And there is definitely like a little bit of clandestine sometimes with people, messaging or reaching out. And it's clear that they're not ready to publicly be like, in support or part of our organization, but they are, I think, inspired and in support of what we're doing, even if they're not ready to publicly vocalize that. What do you see, Betsy?
Same. As far as, I'm lucky that it's not my blood family that has been Trump supporters. It's my in-laws. And I would say that they've actually dug in harder, which sucks. Um, but I will also say that, yeah, I mean, we do have the people who, sneak by a rally and they're like, hey, we're in support, you know, or the people who drive around the block 15 times to honk and wave and so like I think people are coming around. Not every single one and probably not enough, but like we're getting there.
Quick follow-up. The mayor of Evansville put up pride flags. That sounded remarkable in that whole community. So, are there some elected officials that are either elected to nonpartisan office? Many municipalities have nonpartisan,
Yeah.
or any small pockets where Democrats have been elected.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that Mayor of Evansville has since resigned. But she's definitely progressive. And like for city council for Casper, I mean, I would say that the majority of our city council right now is more progressive leaning, quite honestly. Um, I mean, most of them. And like that's been really cool to see them in that space as well, because they also, I mean, they don't come to CUSP rallies or anything, but they do quietly support the work that we're doing.
Do you use speaker time at council meetings? Do you present any of your actions there?
We haven't.
Have you considered that? That can be, in a respectful way. Often city councils have a 2-minute speaker's time.
That
To
is
use
something I
that.
think we should consider for sure. We do show up at town halls when our lone representative, Harriet Hageman, shows up. We do show up at town halls to ask her some pretty hard questions, but the city council, I think, would be a good forum that we should explore.
And you could be strategic, find an apple pie issue, food bank, and present yourselves so they get to see your faces and respect you, and then you move into more and more, tougher issues. But those are a couple recommendations. So
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I'll I'll step back.
Well, I was just going to add one thing to what you were saying. There is a gentleman here in Casper who, gentleman is really a stretch, quite honestly, but he set up his own Doge committee and has been basically heckling the city of Casper, and it just has been awful to them. And in his Doge, his own self put on Doge meetings, CUSP went to a few of those to help stand in solidarity with our city council members. So we did do that.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
It was a ride.
That's good. I mean, when you can do stuff like that and get, push the narrative back a little bit and hopefully expose what the true background and meaning of somebody's actions are. That's good. Phil, Way, you had your hand up.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much. You have a great deal of courage and you have my full respect. Um, I am wondering if any of your members feel any threats from employers or
Mm,
anything like that.
That's a really good question. I know we do have one. We have one member who is actually works for the federal government, and so she lays low and kind of does more on the back end of things. She does a lot with our Natrona County Dems as well, and so that is a little bit more of a safe outlet for her to present her opinions and perspectives versus what we try to do. but to my knowledge, she's the only one, I think, who
So
has to
too. And
really be
she,
mindful.
yeah. And I was gonna say, and
I,
she also, like, when she comes to rallies, she's often the one who, like, she comes in a costume usually. Like, she has like Care Bear pajamas that she puts on and wears that as her rally outfit. Again, because she works for the government.
yeah. I also have a comment to share. Um, my son lives in rural Alaska, and uh, and he has not found any allies yet. I think everybody's afraid to stick their heads up. Uh, when he first arrived there, people were talking about shooting Democrats, uh, and he hasn't felt safe. He runs a small business in a town of 5,000, and and he does not feel safe coming out.
Mhm.
Um, there's one interesting side effect. They have a large Native American population who operate the only health facility in town. Uh, but the Native Americans are dead silent on the political issues. Um,
Mm.
but I think they might represent a voting force. Nevertheless, anyway, it's a strange place to be, and I appreciate what you guys are doing very much.
Thank you.
When you said you were going to share something, I thought you were going to say that you had Care Bear pajamas as well. Um,
I was hoping.
yeah, I'll wear them. To a rally. I'm fine with that. Thank you, Phil. Carol Francis, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Um, I really appreciate this because I've been in Orange County. I'm from LA, which is a border. LA County is on the border of Orange County. LA has a lot of diversity. Orange County is known for being conservative, although there have been some elections there that really shocked people by showing a lot of people are not conservative there. Um, but I was the first activism I ever engaged in after having been a Republican and apolitical for most of my life was as a young adult with the United Farmworkers. And they had an initiative on the ballot, a farm worker supported initiative. They sent us to Orange County. And I thought, God, I'm going to be among all these right wing people. And it turned out that all these people would come from the more progressive pockets just to be able to do. I think one of you mentioned something about it and making you feel more powerful or good. And, you know, what I really want you to go home with from this today is knowledge that you're making more change than you think you are. Because I had a friend who she had been my roommate and best friend in college. And then about 5 years later, she called me up and I went to visit her and she was in a body cast because she had an accident at work. And I said, she said, "It's no big problem. It's all paid for." And I said, "It's all paid for because of your union." And she just, no. 5 years later, I ran into her again and she says, first thing, she says, "Remember that time we were having that talk and I was putting down unions, putting down the UFW, and you said that I got my medical help taken care of because of the union?" You were right. Now, there wasn't a thing I had said that day that she agreed with, that she didn't argue with. And I left feeling like, why do I bother with these people? 5 years later, found out she had accepted what I had to say, maybe a minute after I left her house. Maybe 5 years later, just before she called me up. But you are doing more and having more of an effect than you think you are.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's
Joan
very, very
Francis.
motivating. Thank you.
It's very true. Thank you. Svanche, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I found your presentation very encouraging as well. You seemed to imply that what you're doing is not politics, but I just read something. Well, I want to challenge that. So the partisan politics that you're not doing is just a very small part of politics, but fighting for change like you are doing, on also others insisting that the status quo is what they want, that is all politics, and that's a good thing. And then the second thing is, I had a question. No, well, another comment or question. It seems like you're working on consensus. We did the same with the Pasadena Tenants Union when I was there. And as the organization was growing, they noticed that that doesn't always work. Like when there's more and more people involved, and sometimes decisions of what to do have to be made quickly. So are you also thinking about like changing about how things work when you have to make decisions quickly, and what changes would there be?
So that is
That we have. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Betsy. You're good.
Oh, I was just gonna probably the same thing you were gonna say is we have a group of us. There's like 6 or 7 of us that are like more of, I don't know, we've been calling ourselves the steering committee, really. So if something comes to be that it needs a decision right now, and it needs to be done quickly, that group of us usually makes the decision and then explains why later. It's rare that there's been an issue in that way, but it does happen. But also, I don't know, I can't think of a lot of urgent actions that we've dealt with in that way. Sorry, my cat is rubbing on the computer.
No, I don't think there's been a lot of instances, but we are experiencing a period of pretty large growth right now. And so I do see the potential for more of those instances to pop up. The other thing that we've kind of done is we are establishing essentially committees. And so we are taking our main focuses, letters to the editor, mutual aid, administrative and social media, vetting, and things of that sort. And we're creating committees. And then those committees each have a leader. And those leaders are volunteer based at this point. So once all of those roles are filled, that will kind of become like the steering committee that Betsy is referring to will be all of the leaders of those subcommittees that we have. But in the meantime, it's just been, like Betsy said, a group of about 7 of us that if push comes to shove, we will just go ahead and do it and deal with it later. But thankfully, we haven't had too many of those pop up yet.
That's good to know.
And what do you think about the definition of politics?
That's a really good question. Oh man.
I guess as far as our group, we're talking of like when we think politics, we're actually thinking of like we're thinking of, the legislate calling out our legislators, calling it, and focusing on them. But honestly, like the people in our legislature are the ones who are making food a political issue. Like, I mean, I would argue that feeding people should never be about politics. Like, we should just feed people. But yeah, like Amber was saying, like we've had people, I mean, continuously cut funding for SNAP, cut funding for WIC, and cut funding for like summer food programs. And so even though we don't think that food should be political, like it clearly is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's really all about the power dynamic, and there's a lot of inequity in that. And really that's kind of what has led us to where we are now, is that significant inequity in the power structure in our whole country, I would argue. And like that's really where all of our problems come from, is the inequity in power.
Right. I think of what you guys are doing as almost like a historical precedent. It's more like what happened in New Orleans with mutual aid societies that came up in the neighborhoods like the, Ninth Ward and other areas, where under the guise of being social organizations, they would do things like have money for homegoings when someone would pass away, helping economically and stuff. And I think, that's a good way to think about it, because it's not politics. It's supporting people socially. Yeah. So, something to think about. Michael, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I also just noticed something in the chat from Randall I might want to address. I found it very inspiring. I think it's really great what you're doing, very courageous. I did want to offer one suggestion. Many years ago, was involved with anti-racist action. We also did not want to go the route of incorporating or being a nonprofit or anything like that. And what I finally did was file a fictitious business name statement, DBA, for anti-racist action to open a bank account. And it's not a lot of money, but I just report it as self-employment on my taxes. And it allows you to, have some kind of bank account without having a big corporate existence. And just one person has to take the risk of, identifying themselves. Just a thought. I don't know if they have that in, I assume every state has something similar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We also have someone else. Actually, I know you didn't get a chance to introduce yourself, so Anthony, if you can do that, and also whatever the question you want to ask.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Anthony Manousis, and I'm here in Pasadena, and my wife and I are co-founders of a nonprofit called Making Housing and Community Happen. We advocate for affordable housing, and I'm also on the board of ICUJP. I want to commend you for your amazing organizing work. We do a lot of organizing work in our city, and everything you're doing is spot on from my perspective. You understand that it's all about relationship building and community building, and that's how you make things happen. It also is important to remember that in order to make things happen, you have to be committed to the long haul. For example, in our city, my wife helped start a group that advocated for rent control 20 years ago, and no one on the council supported it. It was treated like a joke. But after 20 years, we worked with a tenants union that Swanya mentioned, and we got it passed. And also, we changed the culture of Pasadena from opposing affordable housing or not being very sympathetic to now being one of the most supportive of affordable housing in the whole San Gabriel Valley. Took 20 years of organizing and building consensus and working with elected officials and service providers and all of that. So what I'm saying to you is there's partisan politics, which is about focusing on a party, and then there's finding things that people can all agree on. And one of the things we can all agree on is ending homelessness. And that's why we've been able to get conservatives and liberals in our city to unite around how do we end homelessness in our city. And we work with churches. And my two questions is, what are your thoughts about the long haul and getting involved with local issues that you can really make a difference? And the second is what Randy mentioned. Do you work with churches? Because we found that they have a lot of influence. And if you can get churches on board, it can have an impact on our elected officials because of the constituents and also because of the moral power that churches have. Those are my two questions.
So we do have the Kind Grounds collections that we do. The organization that is around here to help our unhoused community, that is ran by a pastor. And so we work pretty closely with him. And then there is another local pastor who is a very strong advocate of reproductive freedom. We work really closely with one of our sister organizations, YO United. Betsy and I are both on the board for that. And she does a lot in terms of advocacy as well. One problem we run into here is the high rate of Christian nationalism, as opposed to just like level-headed.
Christian without the nationalism.
Thank you. I was like, normal religion.
I can't think of a nicer way to say it. Christian minus the nationalism.
Exactly. And so, unfortunately, I don't know what your experience is, Betsy, but we actually have a lot of people I see who absolutely support everything that's happening on the basis of that Christian nationalism. And so we don't actually have a ton of support from the religious community, but yeah.
And it's not uncommon for churches here to have their sign or whatever, their marquee, flashing with like, God bless Trump or whatever. And so as far as like, we, the pastor who does Kind Grounds, the pastor that Amber was talking about, and the church that we've done, like when we've done our diaper drives and feminine hygiene drives, that also goes to a church. Like we have an Episcopal church in town that also, like, they're the ones that do that. And so we collect for them. But really, like, I would say that's our three. And I mean, just in Casper, there's got to, really? Yeah. Okay. I'd say because there's
one more.
Right. There's got to be 30 or 40 churches here, and those are the ones that are openly on our, maybe not super openly, but like on our team.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's good to hear that there are churches on your team, because I think of Christian nationalism as a heresy. It has nothing to do with authentic Christianity. It's a perversion of the faith.
Yeah.
Of Jesus.
Yeah. And there are a few. Yeah. But most of them are not. And I think to answer your other question about long haul, I think our plan is we're in it to feed children until we don't have to fight for children to be fed. I mean, I think that's our big standing point. Like, when we don't have to go ahead.
I just think that's brilliant, because like housing, that's something no one can argue with. Even if you're a Christian nationalist, how can you argue with feeding children? I mean, that's something you can unite the whole community around eventually. I think it's brilliant they're focusing on that.
We hope.
Yeah.
We hope.
But yeah, like I said, there's still a handful of people who really are just so adamant that we can't be raising these kids to be dependent on the government and don't have any interest in, because you're 100% right. Like, feeding children is something that should be unanimously supported. And the fact that it's not kind of paints a picture of what we're up against in terms of the Freedom Caucus being in control of our state.
Yeah. Well, we have that. And then we have the other state senator who's from Cheyenne, who also, her point was that she doesn't think that we should expand, SNAP or WIC benefits because she doesn't want the people of our communities to become too comfortable in their poverty. Like, wish I was kidding, but that is a thing that she said. And I think that, like Amber said, it really paints a picture of what we're doing, because, if they think that these kids are comfortable in the poverty that's being created, like, it's sickening.
It is.
Wow.
Because it shouldn't be political. It shouldn't be political.
Go ahead.
Are you our best advocates for homeless for housing on unhoused people have been people who've experienced homelessness on the streets. They are people with lived experience, and when they come to council meetings and speak, they really are listened to. Are you engaging and working with the kind of people who are struggling over food insecurity and bringing them into the advocacy world?
So we don't have a lot, since most of what we do, with the exception of the direct one-on-one approaches to us for mutual aid and assistance with food and things of that sort, we don't have a lot of direct interaction with the people who are actually receiving the food, because it all goes through the food banks locally. But that is something that I think really needs to be considered, because who better to speak on an issue than someone who has experienced it themselves? And that is something I think that we should consider. And maybe we have a pretty good relationship with the executive director at the food bank that we primarily donate to, so I would expect that that's something that if we wanted to pursue, she would be able to help us facilitate. She would have somebody in mind who would perhaps be able to or be interested in speaking to that effect. It's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. Steve, you had your hand up.
Real quick, does the group Indivisible, the nationwide group, have a presence in Casper or Wyoming otherwise?
I believe so. That's a Sandy question. Betsy, do you know the answer for sure? I believe we do. I believe that's here.
I believe we do too. I don't know for sure.
I would. Are you planning to participate in No King's Day on March 28th? That's the next No King's Day nationally. Thousands of events are being planned locally.
The Natrona County Democrats are planning that one here, but I suspect that CUSP members will show up in support.
Well, perhaps offline, I'd like to encourage you to explore Indivisible. I'm very impressed by their founders, Ezra and Leah. They hold weekly meetings on Thursdays at noon Pacific time. They provide all kinds of tools and organizing techniques and information. And as a coalition building effort between CUSP, I think Indivisible could be very helpful. You don't lose your identity. You can be a separate organization, but you can also affiliate and support them, and they will support you. And we can talk about that offline with links, etc. Finally, Lynn Cheney. So, when I asked my first question about people changing their minds or going out of the box, does she have any remaining influence or stature in Wyoming?
Nope. Liz Cheney has been booted. I mean, after she stood up against what happened on January 6th, like, and said this is wrong, blah, 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 she's been totally booted. Like,
Okay, I don't know
it's
if this.
terrible. It's terrible.
I don't know if I mean that's a legendary Wyoming family, and
Hmm.
talk about crossing lines and nonpartisan. It just seems like a possibility to reinforce her courage and her independence. But that's just a thought.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's a lot. Pretty much anybody who's not in the MAGA house, I think, would love to see her back in local politics because she represents, I'm not conservative, but I can get much more behind her version of conservatism than Harriet Hageman's, like by a long shot. So, and that's really what it's all about, is getting people who just embody just regular politics, essentially, without all of this hate and division and
Got it. I had a really quick question. This is kind of inside baseball for you guys. You mentioned Discord, and I doubt that anybody here is using Discord. Maybe I shouldn't put it this way, but I think it's kind of like an age group type of thing. I don't know how old the Sasquatch is in your group, but he seems kind of young. I would think. Um, so have you found that it's been a way to get younger people on board, or how has that worked out for you?
So the way that we run our Discord is it's essentially just for organizational purposes. We
Mhm.
have a Facebook page that anyone can follow, but
Right.
in order to join our Discord server, it's private. And so you have to go through our vetting process because that's where we do all of our inner planning and venting and all of that sort of stuff. So we keep that one private. But it definitely, I would say, appeals to some of our younger members because they are familiar with it and how to use it and are comfortable with that level of, tech savviness.
Right. Sounds good. Um, Richard, or Dick, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this presentation. And before I get in my issues, I just want to say that I wish I'd heard this 60 years ago because I was so opposed to the war in Vietnam, and my very conservative father was very much for it. And the amount of anger I brought to that conversation, I'm embarrassed about as I've grown older. And there's a maturity that I sense in you that is so important in order for that voice to be heard. A voice in the wilderness, but still a voice. And so thank you. I wanted to just mention the name of James Tallarico when the discussion came up about the religious right and Christian nationalism and so forth. I can't think of anyone who's better at articulating um, a humane position than James Tallarico, who's a member of the Texas legislature and also has a seminary degree. I think it's a Presbyterian seminary. He's very solidly based, um, from my perspective, theologically, but also just from the standpoint of his overall understanding of civil liberties and basic constitutional principles. I hope we can all kind of find this guy online and find ways to feature him as a speaker. He's running for the Senate right now. I don't think he's winning. I don't think he's ahead, but he's running. Anyway, I just wanted to mention his name. Um, and uh, but I just also wanted to ask a question about your being uneasy about becoming incorporated as a nonprofit. I've spent probably about half my career working with nonprofits, and it just makes me really uneasy that you don't feel free to become incorporated as a nonprofit and can't have a bank account under the name of the organization. I wonder if there's any wisdom in this group about what you might do, because when things are handled, you're handling money, and when uh, the devil is in the details, and the devil is in the details about money. It's really shocking to me that things are so polarized in Wyoming that you don't feel safe going to Secretary of State and becoming established as a nonprofit. Steve, do you have any comments about this, or anyone else on this screen? Where do they go with this?
We are actually thinking, we're meeting with a local attorney on Monday who's going to discuss the possibility of setting up an anonymous LLC, essentially. So, because even with an LLC, it would be traced back to somebody's name with their home address and everything like that. And we don't feel comfortable with that either because of some of the threats that we receive online specifically. So ideally, what we're hoping is to set up an anonymous LLC, essentially, that can only have the name of the holder revealed through subpoena. And then with that, we would be able to open a bank account and also have the aspect of liability protection from anything that could arise. But if anybody has any other ideas out of that, we would love to hear them for sure.
I assume there's an ACLU affiliate office somewhere in Wyoming, because there is one in every state.
Yes. Wyoming and South Dakota share their ACLU office.
I would also, I mean, it's great that you're speaking to a private attorney. I would reach out to the ACLU. They will speak with you confidentially as a potential client, explore all of those issues. I join in Dick's distress that you don't feel comfortable doing that, because there are values, there is corporate protection to the whole purpose of a corporation is to insulate one from certain liabilities. You are public already. I doubt, I mean, people see you at your food collections. You've talked about a variety of ways. So I'm not sure you have, you can even succeed in maintaining total anonymity if someone wanted to target you. So the balancing of the pros and cons of that's very important depending on your law. So in addition to your private attorney, I'd encourage you to reach out to your local ACLU.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, Steve, if you wanted to, I know you probably want to say something else at this point.
You're very, oh, look at that. It's time flies when you're talking to good people. But what Rick's alluding to is, with the power vested in me as chair of ICUJP, Betsy and Amber, you are now card-carrying members of ICUJP. Your lifetime membership is fully paid, since there is no membership fee. And this is just a symbolic way of saying that, as you've heard today universally, how grateful we are, how impressed we are, how much we appreciate what you're doing. We hope you'll stay with us as we have a closing circle and a few more final things to send us off. But we talk about we the people. It takes people for people to support people, and your clarity and your PowerPoint and the levels of organization and understanding, as Anthony mentioned, is very impressive. And there's organizing and then there's mobilizing. And I think you can look forward to expanding your work. But we're just very proud of you today. And we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you so much.
You
Thank you.
really, thank you.
Oh, good to have you guys. And Jon, again, thank you very much for bringing us Amber and Becky. That's it's been very nice of you to do that.
And thank you, everybody, for coming, for joining us, for what you do every day, especially to Carol Francis for her reflection and our two extraordinary speakers. We're here, we're standing shoulder to shoulder with you, and we welcome you back next Friday. This weekend, do something kind. Thank you very much.